What are some of the areas that most people overlook when it comes to effective firm management?
And I'm a big proponent of trying to build your passion into that. The people that you're working with are the most important thing you have. If you look at it from an asset standpoint, you can minimize that cost of turnover. I mean, that just is a huge aspect of growing a firm right there.
How do you keep those people engaged and connected to your business?
How do you create a culture that people like to be part of when you're in a remote environment?
Ultimately, if you're not making your financial processes work, that's going to fall apart on you. How do you deal with the negative connotations with that kind of stuff?
I think from that standpoint, one of the biggest negatives we have in the profession is the billable hour. Treat people as people. Accountants can make a lot of money. Don't follow what's been done forever just because it's been done forever.
Welcome to the CPA Transformation Podcast, where innovation meets insight. I'm your host, Jeffery Cronin, Chief Strategy Officer at Genwork. Join me as we consider the forces revolutionizing the world of accountants, bookkeepers, and professional tax preparers. Get ready for thought-provoking discussions and invaluable insights brought to you by tax1099.com. To watch and listen to more episodes of the CPA Transformation Podcast, visit cpatransformation.com, or you can visit our YouTube channel at tax1099. Hope you enjoy the podcast. Hello and welcome. I'd like to welcome Randy Crabtree, co-founder of Tri-Merit Specialty Tax, to joining us here today on the podcast. And Randy, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about Tri-Merit?
Sure. Quick about myself. I'm a CPA. I've been in public accounting for many, many years, which means I'm old. I actually just put a post on LinkedIn today about something about me graduating, which was almost 40 years ago now from college. So been in the profession a long time. Tri-Merit, I started 17 years ago, and Tri-Merit was a switch for me from going from a generalist, dealing with everything in the tax and accounting world, to a specialist. We are a tax credit and incentive company. We support tax advisors, tax preparers by equipping them with knowledge and tools through us to help bring tax credits and incentives to their clients. So that's a quick synopsis of what Tri-Merit does. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, you guys have had a lot of success, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers would be interested in possibly talking to you about that. But of course, we're not going to talk a lot about your specific firm today.
Nope.
Because why would we do that? I'm sure that we should probably think about that at some point. But today, we really want to spend a little bit of time talking about your other area of passion. How is it that, when you look at an organization, I guess maybe I could start off just asking a question. What are some of the areas that most people overlook when it comes to effective firm management, right? What does it mean? And what kind of stuff do people miss when you talk to them about it?
Yeah, I think often when we're looking at firm management or we're starting a firm, our whole mindset is growth and new clients and, taking on everybody, and which is great. Let's talk about that from a starting.
Yeah.
Hey, you start a firm. What's the most important thing? I mean, in your mind, at least, it's revenue. I mean, I need to live. I need to pay bills. And so, there's no problem with that at all. And for me personally, I've historically been really good at starting businesses. And then when you get to a certain point, that's where my skill set goes away. And so things that people ignore often is, at some point in time, we can look at this business and we can decide, let's pivot to a specific area, a specific client we want to service, a specific service offering we want to give. Because it's just, if you could find an area in your business that you're passionate about, that you enjoy doing. As an example, when I was a generalist, I helped everybody. I helped every single client was out there that would pay us. We grew. There was not just me, but we had other people. But I never really considered, okay, am I helping everybody by helping everybody, am I actually helping everybody? Or can I be hindering them because I'm not an expert in every single industry out there? And so I think from a management standpoint, we often overlook the fact that, yes, we can make the decisions on how we want to grow this firm, not just grow it. We can make the decision on this is the type of client we want, this is the service area we want to deal with. And I'm a big proponent of trying to build your passion into that. The people that you're working with are the most important thing you have. Oftentimes we look at the clients are the most important thing. It's not. Anybody can service that client. I mean, there's many opportunities for someone to service that client. But if you can serve your employees, the people you work with, the people that you're spending all this time with, and you can value them to the level you should, or they should be valued, that's where I think things are huge. And I think that's often, especially in our profession, neglected.
Yeah.
We're more concerned about how many hours we put in rather than who we're working with and what they're delivering.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, right? When you think about what is the asset of a firm,
right?
It's people.
Yep.
Right, and that's 90. That is really the thing that you should be working to protect. I think that's a great perspective to have on that. When you think about protecting and growing your investment in that asset, or at least protecting your investment in the. I hate to talk about people as assets. It's kind of the wrong way to think about it.
It's easy to say asset. Because they are. I mean, they're an asset to your business. Look at asset as a positive thing. Yes. I mean, it's we're assets, but they're people too, and that's the most important thing. And you said something, protecting that. I mean, protecting whatever, the relationship you have with it. But if you treat people like people rather than job titles, you're not only going to retain them, you're going to attract people. People are going to hear this. They're going to understand that, hey, this is a place I need to go work. And if we do look at people as assets and people want to come to you and people stay, you can value that. I mean, that's tremendous. And we ignore that, I think, way too much. The fact that people don't leave is a huge value. The math out there, I think, says that to replace one person takes anywhere from a cost of 50% of their salary to 200% of their salary on a year for you to replace somebody. So if you can minimize that, if you look at it from an asset standpoint, you can minimize that cost of turnover. I mean, that just is a huge aspect of growing a firm right there that I think we ignore too much. And so for us personally, we honestly, I keep throwing these numbers out, and I should verify, but we recently had someone leave just a couple weeks ago. He just decided to pursue another passion of his, and which is fine. And before that, it was probably 3 years ago someone left, and before that, it was probably 4 years before that. I mean, it's like crazy numbers, the retention that we've had. And so from that standpoint, we can spend a lot of money on other things, the people as well, but making an atmosphere that people love to be part of. And so, yeah, it's ignoring people and just looking at the hours we put in. Sure, you can build a firm that way. I just don't think you're going to build a firm that's going to attract people.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, so when you talk about attracting people and retaining people, there's a whole conversation around how is it, how do you keep those people engaged and connected to your business? Any thoughts about when you look at that engagement process? How do you make sure you keep them there and attracting? You sort of mentioned some additional ones, like, hey, you can invest in the environment and things like that, but maybe go a little bit further into that.
Yeah, and I think that's a big question to ask that everybody's asking themselves now in this newly remote environment that we're in too. And because it's not just a small firm that's going remote. I mean, I don't know what you guys have done, but I know a top 25 firm a CPA firm in the country that is 77% remote. And they're a top 25 firm. And so the question is, how do you create a culture that people like to be part of when you're in a remote environment? And I've never even thought that was something that you couldn't do, because we've pretty much been remote from day one. 17 years ago. When we first started, there was a handful of us that worked out of my living room at my house, and since then, it's pretty much been remote. And so, little things that you can do to make people feel valued and feel like they're part of something and feel that they're contributing to something and being rewarded for what they're doing as well, is just get to know them personally. And so, it's just something I think is important. Is that every time that a new individual is hired, I get an automated response on Teams that's tied in with our payroll system, and the payroll system will notify me with a Teams message that says, hey, Sally Jones is going to start on this date, and my assistant then will go in. It used to be me, and often I would be so afraid I'd miss it. My assistant now goes in, and she's awesome, by the way. She'd go in and she'll just schedule a Teams call with this new person. I used to do this randomly and where people didn't know I was calling, and I would just do it and just show up. And, I started thinking, you know what? One, they might think, who's Randy? As we've grown, rather than why is Randy calling? But they may be thinking, why is Randy calling, too? And so we just set the stage. Hey, Randy just wants to talk. We're going to get together. We're going to just, welcome you to Tri-Merit. But I talk about nothing with the business. I just talk about who they are, what they do, what they love to do, what's their passion, what are they, when they're not working, and hopefully they're not working long hours because we don't expect that. What are they doing? They out hiking, they enjoying going to movies. What's their outside of work passion? And getting to know people that way, even in a remote environment, I think creates this culture that people appreciate. We do that on calls as well, at the end of a team, a team has a Teams call, the software we use, and at the end of that Teams, boy, that's too many Teams in there. At the end of that, we should just say Zoom, even though we use Teams. At the end of that Zoom call, somebody gets to share information about themselves. So everybody else on that call gets to hear who you are and what you love and what you do and about your family, about your vacation, whatever you want to talk about. You just get to do that so everybody gets to know each other. And I'll wrap up this in a minute. But another thing then that we do is I think you can do that in a remote environment, but I still think it's really important to get together. And so we get together multiple ways. There's regional teams that will try to get together for a happy hour or something. We have a lot of people in Houston. We have a lot of people in Michigan. We have a lot of people in Chicago area, with Denver. And so those try to get together occasionally. And Tri-Merit will support that get-together as well. But as a whole organization, we get together twice a year. And, people think, wow, that's significant cost and everything. I just explained to you we don't have any cost to replace people. In reality, it is it's a lot cheaper to have these get-togethers where we all get together and get really, get to hug each other, get to be in person, get to tell everybody how much we appreciate it and how much we all enjoy being together. And so we do that twice a year in remote environments where everybody just goes and has a good time. So man, I could talk about this stuff forever. You're getting me going because this is exciting stuff to me. But that's, I think, a way that you can create a culture that people enjoy being part of.
Yeah, I think that's a great, even the little things. I mean, so you mentioned, I can say that for my teams, I actually start my meetings with the personal stuff.
Nice.
Which, because I is a way to try to actually get people to be connected prior to having a conversation about work things, which can sometimes get a little contentious. So I kind of intentionally said, hey, let's ground ourselves in liking each other before we start maybe having some constructive conflict, as Lencioni calls it. But I think that's a great point about actually making space for in-person meetings across the whole organization. Not everybody. We all have to understand there's some firms out there that are just too big for that to happen. But if you're a nice mid-sized or smaller firm, even if you're 100% remote, I think that's a great observation about getting people together, just as a way to reinforce community as well as culture. I think that, and I guess maybe you could comment on this. I do think that we don't talk about community in a business as much as maybe we should. And as a way, especially, right, we're all in accounting, right? Ultimately, if you're not making your financial processes work, that's going to fall apart on you. But I think we undervalue the unseen connections that community bring.
So you just said it. A community, I think, every single day I'm in conversations with other people in the profession that I don't work with. And that community and that relationship building supports me so much. It just I get so much out of that. I host a conference called Bridging the Gap, and I think last year the word community had to be said 5,000 times at that conference because that's what it was about. It was about everybody being together. We're really good at not looking at each other as competitors in this profession. I feel we do well with that. I feel as a profession, as the accounting profession, I think we do a really good job at sharing our knowledge, which I love, because not every profession, I don't think, does that. And that aspect just creates this community, which, hey, if I know I have a question on, a state and local tax, a SALT question, I know there's people I can call for that. No, I'm not, because I don't really prepare tax returns. But if I did, I know who to talk to on that. And I know they're going to share whatever they know with me, which is so amazing. So community internally within the firm, I think is great. But I think as a profession, community with all, 1.5 million of us that are in the accounting profession or whatever the number is, that community is such an awesome place that I get to hang out that I'm like pinch myself that I get to be part of this amazing community.
Yeah, I would say, it's good that you brought up the Bridging the Gap conference, and I will say that, every event you go to, because that is the main theme, right? It's sure we all get to see some great sessions and see some speakers, but that's not what the events are for.
I tell people all the time, I learn more between the sessions than I do in the sessions, talking with people, and build those relationships and the community. So conferences in general have been a huge part of my life and propelling me to where I am today, that I'll never stop going to them. Do
you have any other ideas or strategies for people to help make sure you can build resilience into your remote workers who can become, we all know they can become disconnected, and then they're a risk. Sounds like you guys are doing a great job. What other ideas do you have that we could learn from there?
I think just reaching out to people, but just if I haven't talked to somebody in a while, let's just call. And I was really excited yesterday. Somebody that I hired 13 years ago, straight out of college, still working with us today. Well, pretty much that's everybody. Now I'm bragging. Now I am bragging. But he reached out because we hadn't talked much, and just called me like 4 times yesterday because something exciting kept happening with him. He's head of our inside sales team, and just kept calling me with these successes he was having. He's so excited and that. So just making sure he reached out to me, but making sure you're reaching out to others. But the other thing, and this is I think often overlooked, and I don't know, for some reason to me it seems natural, and somebody online just told me today that like sharing your story, that's so brave of you. I'm like, nah, to me it's what you should do. And so I look at empathy, whatever the people are going through, make sure you could feel that, make sure you understand it, make sure you analyze it, from a standpoint, is there something I can do to help them? Is there issues they're having? But as important, and I think more important, is being vulnerable. And so if you're vulnerable with everybody you work with, I think that just creates a connection, because they understand that, hey, you've been through something, you're willing to share it. If they're dealing with something as well, they know that you're open to talk about it. And so I'm I don't know, for some reason I'm always felt vulnerability is not a issue. It's something that is just natural, but I think a lot of people think that that's like brave to do that. And so I think that's a big part of creating a culture where people feel engaged, is if they are not afraid to share if they don't understand something, because you've already shared that there's things that you don't know, there's things that you've dealt with, whether it's burnout, whether it's whatever it is, vulnerability and empathy, I think just help create that atmosphere that, even in a remote environment, that people can be part of.
Yeah, I mean, just the importance of being human in that kind of environment and engaging with people as people is, I think that you bring up a great point around the fact that, showing that you are human, that I'm, the list of things I don't know far exceeds the list of things that I do know. And that's just true for all of us. And so I think that's a great way to look at engaging with the other people that are on your teams and working with you. When you look at that engagement process and you look at working with them, how do you, obviously we all have challenges, right? And especially in places where there's pressure to bill hours, which is true for so many firms. So I guess, how do you deal with the negative connotations with that kind of stuff inside the firm? Is there, are you seeing more, are you an advocate of shift fee for service? I mean, what should I think about in that area?
So there's different ways. There's different aspects to this from a standpoint of where you are in your business, in your firm.
Yeah.
And if you're starting a firm, it's easier to decide how you're going to start billing. So you mentioned hours. I am totally negative on billing by the hour. I grew up in the profession, and that's how we did it.
Yeah.
But looking at it now, and talking with people like Ron Baker, and he's been the pricing guru for so long now. And I'm very lucky to. He and I were on a call last week. I'm getting on another call with him next week, and every time I talk to him, I just learn something new about the profession. So I think from that standpoint, one of the biggest negatives we have in a profession is the billable hour. We look at, all right, how do we get ahead in this profession? We got to put in more time because we're billing by the hour, and the only way I can make more money is if I bill more, and I can only bill more if I work more. And so it's this negative, and honestly, there's no incentive on me, whether it's subconscious or not, there's no incentive on me to go faster because I'm going to bill more. Now, if we start writing off all my hours and everything, there's a little more incentive, but that's still just a negative. We're all looking at negative aspects of things. For me, I would rather bill on an outcome or a result or a value that I'm delivering. And so if we can figure that out, a relationship, look at Ron Baker and subscription pricing. It's all about the relationship that you're building with these clients and this concierge service that you're going to deliver. And now I get to pick and choose the clients that I'm doing this for too, because I'm probably going to charge more because I'm going to be more available to them. So from that standpoint, the negative aspect, one of the biggest negative aspects is the billable hour. If we can get away from that, if we can find ways to do this different, I think in general, this is like, I don't know if there's a bigger thing we can do in the profession to make this an area where people are going to start become more attracted to the profession. Because we are in crisis.
We are.
And we're not the only profession, but we're in a crisis. And so if we can just show that this is we're not chained to our desk 80 hours a week because, that's just how we're going to move forward is billing more. If we can do that based on a value or an outcome.
Yeah. And when you think about, even medicine, right? There's concierge service in medicine now where you can get there are a bunch of models that we could go look at and say, hey, are there things we can learn from people who were used to billing hourly service or even fees for service who moved to concierge subscription models to really optimize their relationship with their patient in that case, and for us as a firm with our customer, like you said, you get to choose and you get to engage in a completely different way. It's no longer how little time do I spend on the phone with you. It's what can I do for you.
Yep.
Which that's a great point. So I may be connecting this back to our prior conversation, right? What about the people, right? So I'm currently living in a world where I'm doing billable hours and suffering burnout. How does this feed back into the mental health of your teammates? Well,
one, if we can get away from the bubble, we can get to that value, if we can work, I'm a big proponent. Let's work less, let's make more. Let's charge what we're worth, because that's another thing we do as a profession. We don't value ourselves high enough. We give away services. I think the subscription pricing values our services, or the value billing obviously values our services. And so, from a people standpoint, and you're hitting on one of my passions that you understand as well, is mental health in the profession. I think is so. Another area that we need to address, because it's partly a personality trait. We just want to help everybody. And so when you go to that subscription pricing, that's the thing we have to get past, because we're not going to help everybody anymore. Those concierge doctors are not dealing with 3,000 patients. They're dealing with 600 patients. The same thing. And they're making more money. And they're more satisfied with what they're doing, and they're not dealing with burnout or what appears to be happening in the medical profession, moral injury as well, because they're feeling they can't help everybody when they're dealing with 3,000 people. They're not giving them the service or the care that they should, and we can equate that to our profession too. If we limit the number of people we work with, give them, this higher level of service, we're going to be more satisfied. They're going to be more satisfied. We can bill more. We can reduce our hours, make more money, avoid burnout, which is way too prevalent, and have the work-life. What some people look at is the mythical work-life balance that's out there. And one last story before I move on from that. I was out at a conference in a different industry a month ago talking about burnout in their profession. I won't say the profession, but it wasn't accounting. Sure. And I'm stereotyping here, but this is what I commonly see in accounting, but this was not accounting, is the older people in the audience were, well, we just worked 80 hours a week, and we had work-life balance once we retired. That's when that came. We didn't worry about it. We just work. I'm like, no. That's not, maybe you did, and maybe that was good for you. If we want to continue to have a successful firm, the next generation is not going to put up with that. And so we have to figure out a different way. And usually it is I don't know my generation terms, but the millennials or Gen X or whoever, the non-boomers, I'm boomer, people younger than me, they're seeing, yes, let's figure out ways where we can be more efficient and have a life before we retire.
Yeah, that's a great point. And actually, as we come up on time, I think that maybe a little bit of conversation around the future, right? So we both have already agreed that a firm is its people.
Yep.
You and I are at an age that eventually we're not going to be the ones there. When you look ahead, what do you think are the most critical considerations to sort of look at managing your firm over time and really make sure you focus on the human aspect, or as you mentioned, like what the millennials and the zennials, the Gen Z folks are looking for integrating their work and their life in a way that's more healthy?
Yep. It's pretty much everything we said already. It's that treat people as people, get away from the billable hour, realize that people want that work-life balance now, and that remote environment is a key for them, but still getting together occasionally is important as well. I am seeing this. So there's really, I kind of break the profession down into two buckets. There's the top 400 or 500 firms. I say 4 a lot. Lately, we've been saying top 500, which is what? Sure. Probably 5 million and above. The 500th is not a gigantic firm, but it's still a decent firm. And then I look at I'll call it, and I use millennial as a term. Again, I don't know the definitions for generations, but the millennial-led startup, progressive, innovative. Let's not follow the Sally method, same as last year, but let's do things different, because the accounting profession, accountants can make a lot of money. And so there's not a lot of incentive to change, because, hey, a partner in a decent-sized firm is making, $500,000 to $1 million a year. It's not chump change. It's a decent living. So why do I want to mess that up with trying to make a change? Well, because we need it for the next generation. Even the firm structure needs to change. Partnership is probably going to go away. It's going to be some other form of entity that's going to be the future of the accounting profession. So one of the biggest things we can do to move this profession forward, I know we're running out of time, to kind of get to the wrap, is look at being different. Don't follow what's been done forever just because it's been done forever. That's the billable hour. That's the firm structure. That's all these things. Realize that we can make changes and still make a good living, really good living, probably even better than we're doing now, by looking at ways that we can be more innovative in the profession.
Well, Randy, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it, and look forward to talking to you again. I'm sure I'll see you out there somewhere.
Jeff, thank you.